Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man. Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing the second part of our Adeptus Mechanicus Martian bases. And so far, we just went through and basically put the rubble on there and went ahead and did a light dry brush with a couple different shades of brown. And then went through and picked out some of the details. And now what we're going to do is just take our reikland fleshade and we're just going to go through and just get the skulls, and we're just going to go through and do all the skulls with a little bit of that reikland fleshade. Make sure we get down in the crevices, and we don't have to be perfect with it. We're going to go back through afterwards and use some other washes as well, and then we'll have our texture paint on these bases also. So we're just going to go through and do that for all of them. Now we're just going to go through with the agrax earthshade, and just going to sort of like trace around all the rubble. We don't have to go like too crazy with it. We also want to get like on the metal as well. But keep in mind when we're finished here that like most of the surface that's like exposed right now, I'm actually going to switch to a bigger brush. Keep in mind most of the surface that's exposed right now is going to get covered up by that texture paint along the way. So I'm just kind of basically just go over like the metallics and just kind of get like down in the cracks areas a little bit. Want to have kind of like a little bit of a uniform like brown look to like all of it. That way when we come in with like the red like Martian crust, it'll like really stand out down in the cracks. So we just want to basically like make sure we cover like all the metal and just get some random bits. But you see, just looking at it right now, you can see like all the different materials already starting to like stand out and have like the different levels of depth just from like our couple little layers that we did on them. And that's what it's all about, really. I mean, it doesn't have to be like super complex, but you put a couple random things on and you do it enough times and it creates like a cool like realistic kind of surface. And it's not until you really like look at it and focus up close and you start realizing all it is just like a bunch of just basically like the same little components randomly repeated. But I mean, for what it is too, and how much cooler like you get like custom bases versus just like your average Joe ones, or if you bought like some aftermarket ones or whatever, like there's really just no excuse to like not just do this. I mean, I've showed a bunch of different videos. If you've never like watched the other ones, the temple bases, you can make a ton of them for really cheap. These are even cheaper, really. They basically cost like nothing. I mean, you could buy like one pot of that texture paint and do probably like this is two full starter sets, and it's gonna do them and have the majority of it still left over. So alright, sweet, it's time for that Martian Ironcrust now. And I got this little 3D printed guy right here just to keep everything from falling over, in case you're wondering about that. So all we're gonna do is, this stuff's like kind of clumpy. It has like almost a sand in it, and it's the stuff that like dries and kind of has like the cracked surface look to it. So we just want to get like a little bit on the brush, and then we're just gonna basically take our base, take the little bit that we put on there, and we want to just kind of spread it out pretty evenly. We're looking to kind of overlap a little bit with some of our stuff, so it looks like it's all like from the same environment, and we don't want to get it on the the lip of the base. I like to just use an old paintbrush, but if you have like a Citadel tool or something like that, obviously that's recommended as well. But you don't have to get too fancy. I just like to use something that I can just throw away afterwards, so I don't have to clean it. I think that's about what I'm going for. I'm not gonna go for 100% coverage. I want it to be like mostly coverage, but I want there to still be like some exposed area as well. So I'm just gonna get like a clump. You have to have like just a little bit of thickness of it so that it'll get like the cracked effect, but you don't want to make it like too thick either, because if it's really thick it doesn't work correctly. And I think for the bigger ones I'm going to try to leave a little bit more maybe of the brown exposed. Just basically just doing the same thing over and over again. The idea with like this metal mesh that I put here was maybe just build it up a little bit thicker right there and then make it look like it was kind of like under the ground. These should turn out pretty awesome too. Have a cool look to them. I think anytime you do like custom basing though, you know, it looks great because it's just something cool and different. Like people just aren't used to seeing it, so it always is gonna like stand out more than when you see something and you're like, oh yeah, those are cool, I've seen them before. You know, you might get excited the first time you see that one, but then you're just like, oh yeah, that's cool, I've seen it. That's what I was kind of picturing, like where it's kind of built up around it. You can't really tell like a ton of what effect you're getting with these either if you've never used them before until it's been drying for a while. So if you've never used it, you could always do like one to kind of get an idea what to expect and then just kind of go from there. I've used this a bunch of times, so I have a pretty good idea like how thick to lay it on and you know what it's going to look like when it's done. Get a nice little scoop on there. Keep in mind too, like you know, you want to use some order when you're doing this, but it is just your base too. Like you're gonna have a dude standing on top of this, so you're probably not gonna be able to see most of it when it's finished. that's basically, you know, what we're going for, and then we can see what they look like when they're all finished up, obviously. And like I was saying about the brown, you know, the majority of that ends up being covered up. You're not even going to be able to see that. But, you know, I do like to have the multiple shades for the areas that are exposed. So you sort of have like that differentiation. You can kind of see how the mesh just looks like it's kind of poking through there a little bit. Gives like that cool effect. And I mean, it's definitely a process, you know, going through and doing each one or whatever, but get that super unique feel to your army. Definitely makes it worth it in the end. And I think a lot of people overlook basing, but man, it can make such a huge difference, like on the overall look of your army. And like spending the time and like, you know, picking your colors and everything makes such a big difference too. Because I'll see like an army where like the armor is painted like white with like a gray, you know, like shade to it, and then the bases will be like the same kind of color. You're like, man, should have used like a brown. You know, you do like the cool and the warm, so you get like that contrast. You know, even if it's not the same color, but just like along those lines, so you get like the contrast where your models like really stand out from, you know, their environment basically. Because that's what's gonna really make them like look cool. Because I mean, they should kind of blend a little bit. You might want like some like, you know, dirt along like your boots or whatever, you know, but you want like your actual warriors to like stand out from a distance, so they look like, you know, I mean, I guess unless you're going for that hardcore like camouflage, but I like to think in the future, you know, they have so much technology and everything that they're not like just like line of sighting people the same way we think, like they have all that technology or whatever, so like the actual colors, actual colors, their uniforms don't make a difference, you know, as much as the technology and strategic positioning. So, you know, if you want to be like Imperial Fist, it doesn't matter that you're like bright yellow, orange, or whatever. Otherwise, everybody would just be on that Raven Guard status. And we'll see how people like this style of video where I do like the build-in paints a little bit more. They are a little easier because I don't have to do like as much time, spend as much time editing. Because I think a lot of people don't realize is if you're gonna like say take a 30-minute video and then you're gonna edit it, and say you gotta watch it twice, you take 30 minutes to film it, and then you take like 30 minutes twice to edit it. When it's all said and done, you know, you're basically spent like an hour and a half to make a 30-minute video. And that's just assuming like all those numbers. You know, it might be more or less depending, you know, what kind of video you shoot. Like, so if you can shoot a 15-minute video and do it in a 20-minute actual like segment, and you only have to cut out 5 minutes of it, it takes so much less time than if you shoot like an hour and then you cut it down to, you know, that same 15-minute segment. That's why it's easy to just do like those quick little clips and then just cut away and then just come back. Or it's good to just do like this, where you just, you know, get on here and go, and then just don't even really edit it, just like run it through. Those are like pretty much the two ideal ways to do it, you know, from like the filming perspective. I think alternatively you could just film and then come back through and do like voiceover, and I think that would be pretty good probably. But I'm just not in a position to go back through. And again, you spend so much time editing if you're going through and then voiceovering, because you're not just like ad-libbing as you go. You have to kind of like edit the footage or whatever, and then go through, figure out what you're going to say. Like, you know, I mean, if you're going to write a script up for it, like, I mean, it can turn into like a whole deal. And I think that's when people end up spending, like, you know, for a 30-minute video or something like that, they end up spending like, you know, hours upon hours. Alright, and there we got them all layered up pretty well. Want to let them dry so we can kind of get like that crackly earth effect. But as you can see, it's starting to resemble like the clay, war-torn, like Martian earth environment. But you can kind of get an idea what they look like before. See how the mesh kind of makes it look like it's down like underneath. Kind of gives it depth. I like that because like the Mechanicus kind of has that, you know, like the planet might have like some machine kind of like things going on underneath. And then, you know, we got plenty of the little ones too. And then I'll do one, you know, once they're dry, and kind of show off like how the little cracks look when they're finished. And then, you know, we'll paint the rims black and everything. And then, of course, when once the entire commission's done, we'll obviously do a video. They're coming along pretty well. Yeah, I'm just basically getting the base colors done on them right now, and then we'll go back through and do like the washes, and then we can do some highlights and all that good stuff as well. So, alright, now that we've given the technical paint plenty of time to dry, the Martian Ironcrust is good, and we got our texture and everything. Just to finish up the bases, we're just going to go back through, like, pick out any like last little bits of like highlights on the skulls or Space Marine helmets or anything. And then can sort of go around and do the rims of the bases as well, and just kind of give them that black, or if you prefer like a brown, you know, look, you could do that as well. But here you can see basically like how we got our kind of like textured look, and it really gives it like the three-dimensional look to it. How the mesh is kind of like coming from like underneath there, almost like mechanical bits or whatever. You know, just to make it look like more immersive of like a little world, and then like all the little skulls on there and everything. And you know, obviously for the amount of like time and effort, get like a very very unique looking base out of it. And you could run like the Ironcrust all the way up to the edges. You can leave spots where like the brown like comes through, like how we did on some of them. It's all like really preference. I like to leave it you know, where parts show through, and it just lets it have like a lot more like depth basically, because it gives it like just one more layer that you see, and you're kind of like, oh, is that like just some rock that's under the surface? Is that like what everything looks like under there? Is it just one rock? I don't, just kind of let your imagination take over. But as you can see, they come out really nice there. I always like shake my paints up pretty good before I start these too. So if you ever just like see me shake it like for a second or whatever, don't just assume like that's all I'm doing. That's just like the camera tricks. But all we're just gonna do now is just go through every single one of these, and we're just gonna get like a nice kind of like a little watered down abbadon black on there, and I just take my brush like sideways and just go around and just do. Basically, if you hold it just right, it makes it so that you actually like can't touch anything but the parts you're trying to touch. So you really don't have to like worry about making mistakes. And then I just like hold it top to bottom and just kind of rotate it around as I go. And I mean, a lot of these techniques, I've probably done like thousands of times, but if you're like new to them or whatever, it may be like a little rocky at first, or it may take you a couple tries to like kind of get it down. But once you do, they're all about like not only just the final look, but also like efficiency, because like you can spend a ton of extra time and do everything like one guy at a time, one base at a time, like whatever, when you're just doing it like casually. But when you're doing like commissions or armies or like high output rate for like good quality stuff at like speed anyway, you have to figure out like efficient ways to do things so that you're I always say it all the time, but so you're never working backwards, you're always working forwards. And that's what like all my techniques are all about. And that's why I don't mind like sharing them with other people. It's not like I have some crazy skill that other people like can't have. I just like take the time and put in the effort and everything and just practice like these same skills over and over again. And obviously I have a nice like creativity as well, but there's lots of other people that are just as creative or more, just as skilled or more, have just as much time to like dedicate to one thing, versus how I have to like spread my time between a bunch of projects. So but yeah, it's all about just like sharing my little tips and tricks, with hopes that we can build a community over time, and grow to overall improve the hobby, the game, the sport, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, we're just gonna go through and do them all just like that, and we'll look at them when they're all finished up. All right, and there we have it all finished up, and let them dry there. You can see they obviously came out awesome. Great texture to them, and very cool look. And obviously the chaos black on the rim really like sets them off, and just kind of cleans them up, gives them that that full on like professional look to them. And you can always do like a little bit of a like highlight on the like turf itself with just like a little bit lighter like red, or maybe like a bone, like brown color or something like that, like Rakarth Flesh, somewhere around there. But essentially like we got the point. I don't mind doing like something like the Rakarth Flesh or like Rise of Rust or whatever, to kind of like bring everything together, because it'll kind of like put like a little dusting over all the metallics and everything like that as well. But it's just about how far you want to take it, obviously, and how many steps you want to put on there. But it's easier to mess with that obviously before you mount the army to it. So there you have it, guys. That's our moon bases, and yeah, just if you want to kind of see how these dudes look when you put them on there. Definitely pretty cool overall, and give like the army a like thematic look to it. Obviously, like they're supposed to be like from Mars, so I guess they're like defending their homeland or whatever. But very cool, very cool. This is my first Skitarii or Admech army that I've messed with for this commission, and I'm not gonna lie, these models are absolutely phenomenal. We have a local guy that plays them, and I never really like paid that much attention. I mean, they always look cool and everything, but when you really get down to the nitty gritty and check them out and everything, they are absolutely awesome. And with the new stuff coming out, who knows? I may be working on some Skitarii for myself here in the future, or Admech. So there you have it, guys. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and that's our Martian bases.